Hello techno, synth and groovebox lovers, welcome to another Force tutorial. In my last tutorial I introduced to you the latest 3.0.6 drum synth update, and therefore we made a track completely from scratch only using plugins. Today we will also make a track from scratch, but we will only use loops and samples. I will show you how to do some time stretching, how to make all your samples and loops sound in key, and I will also give you some tips on EQing, mixing and mastering. So get yourself a drink, get your Force ready and enjoy the tutorial with me. But as always, let's listen to the end result first. Alright guys, in order to save us some time, I've already created 8 audio tracks and I've also labeled them. On the first track we will have the kick loop, on the second one the top loop, then we will have percussion loops and FX loops. On the third channel or third audio track, number 4 would be the first synth, second synth number 5, then we've got the bass track, the Martin Luther King sample, and last but not least the atmo voice, which is playing throughout the whole track in the background. I've also prepared some return channels, so let's have a look at them. On the first return channel you've got the regular delay, nothing fancy about that, and then we've got 3 different reverb channels. Reverb with a really short reverb time, reverb with a middle reverb time, and then finally a reverb which is pretty long, has a long tail, big room. And the reason for these 3 reverbs is the following. If you want to position certain sounds in your track, then by adding certain reverbs you can decide where the listener hears them, and you can also decide what they sound like. For example, if you want to have a sound really far in the background, rather as some kind of atmo, then you would have lots of the long reverb, not that much of the middle reverb, and only a little bit of the short reverb. If you want to have a track or a sound in the foreground, then you would have lots of the short reverb, a little bit of the middle, and not that much of the long reverb. And if you use these 3 different reverbs as return channels, you can give your sounds and your audio tracks 3-dimensional sounds which encompass the listener's ears, and your tracks will simply sound better. So that's everything I did so far. Set up those 4 return channels and the 8 audio tracks. So I think now it's time to make that beat together. So let's load our first loop. Here we've got the kick drum track selected, and let's move over to my machine expansion folder. There we will choose indigo dust, loops, construction, and I think the loop that I used was the katakama kick drum 2. Yep, that one. Let's load this one. After loading a loop, the first thing you should do is hit clip and then point at the loop, and then you can see if Akai Force got the loop correct, or the standard BPM, the source BPM correct. It should be 120 exactly. Here it's 120.08, so let's correct that. And now, no matter how I change the tempo, it's playing perfectly and matching perfectly the tempo of the general project here. Let's just play that, hold tempo. You can see that it adjusts instantly to the tempo. Let's pick 126 here. We can also see that the Force realized and found out exactly that this kick loop is 8 bars long, so it's looping these 8 bars. We could, for example, just have it loop the 4 bars, the first 4, and it's still perfectly fine. Then in the background of our audio track, or of our Martin Luther King track, we've got some atmo voice going on throughout the whole track. So let's load that atmo voice. Therefore, we will also have a look at the machine expansion folder. I think it was from Ignition Code, loops, vocal. Yeah, that's the one. So after loading it, as always, we hit clip, and then we can see Force got it right. It's just a 1 bar loop. Let's see if the tempo is correct too. 127 exactly. So it didn't get the kick drum loop right, but the audio loop. That's pretty strange. Usually it's the other way around. Okay, anyways, let's play them both. Let's go to the mixer tab here. Of course, we don't want that background voice too much in the mix and too dominant in the mix, and therefore we can already start using our reverb channels. Let's hit screen. So we've got the long reverb, a little bit of the middle, and the short reverb too. Let's also add a little bit of delay. Here you can see the send knobs turning and controlling them with the knobs here. Okay. What I would also like to do, you can already hear that the original sample has this ducking effect, this compressor on it. We will use another sidechain compression on top here. Therefore, we use the kick track. And we will load the mother ducker. So let's have a look at that one. Mother ducker input. Select. And this one affects the last channel here. So let's have a listen. Still too loud. Yeah, that should be fine. Now that we've got the kick drum and the atmo going, it's time for our top loop. First, let's copy that row over here and let's add the top loop here. So let me quickly have a look. Where did I get this from? I think it was from this pack here. I think it was DH loops. Yep. That should be the right one. Let's listen. So let's hit this one again. So it's 120 exactly. Pretty sure get the source BPM right. And I would also like to have the mother ducker on the second channel. Therefore, let's go to FX. Mother ducker. It's time for our first synth part now. Therefore, let's go to Indigo Dust again, loops, and then to the synth section. Our track is in F sharp minor, and here is our loop. Let's load that one in and let's listen. Okay. we can clearly hear it's playing way too fast. Luckily, we don't have to use the tap tempo to find out which tempo this loop has. We just need to have a look at the label. Therefore, we click again the top bar of the loop. It says 121. So let's adjust the original BPM to 121 here. We can see that the loop length obviously does not work anymore. So let's see how many bars we have. 16 bars. So let's set the loop length to 16 bars. Okay. Let's have a look. It starts at 1 here. Okay. And it's perfectly, especially with these synth loops, it makes sense to have a little fade out and a little fade in the beginning. Let's have a listen. Now it's time for our second synth. Before we do that, let's quickly copy that row, delete this one here. Now we place our second synth sample here. Therefore, let's scroll through. Was wearing 2. Yeah, that was the one. Let's go to clip. Let's have a listen. It almost got the BPM right. Not 100% though. So let's get that one correct. And we will also have a little fade in and fade out. First, let me see if the loop length is correct. Yeah, it's correct. 8 bars, 8 bar loop. We have a little fade out here. And also a little fade in. So we're already pretty close to maxing out here. Therefore, let's reduce the volume of these different parts here. got enough headroom for the rest. So the tutorial would be pretty boring if I just took loops from the indigo part and also only in F sharp minor. So let's use something else. We've got rising crescent here, pretty Eastern and Oriental sounding loops. Think in ancient camo. Yeah, that's the one. It's in G sharp minor. Let's load that. Got the BPM right. We don't need to change anything here. Loop length is also correct. So let's have a listen. Oh, we need to copy that one in this row because with the ARP synth 2, we already introduce the percussion part here, which is not really a percussion part, but it will sound like a percussion part if we listen to that in total. So we notice that those two loops are not in key. That's because this camel loop has G sharp as its root note. That would be here. And our root note that we have is F sharp. Yeah? So we need to go 1, 2, 2 semi-step. 2 semi-steps down, 2 semi-notes down, as you like. So now it should sound better. Let's have a listen. Yep. In the next row, we will introduce the bass line. Let's copy that one over here. Now let's load the suitable bass loop here. And that one is also in indigo dust, loops, bass. And it's Zalberg number 2. So if we load that bass clip, we see the Force got the BPM completely right. However, the key is A and our key is F sharp minor. Let's see if it works anyways. Doesn't sound too good. Let me show you why this is the case. So the root note A is here. We need to get over to F sharp minor. Therefore, 1, 2, 3 semitones down. And then it should sound better. Let's have a listen. And it also makes sense to put the mother ducker in here. Let's just solo the bass. To my taste, the bass is not loud enough. Plus 5 dB. Sounds good to my ears. Let's have a look at the output. Okay, we're maxing out already. So I'll need to reduce the bass a little more. We still need to change the percussion part here. Let's delete this one, load a new one from the Sasha expansion, loops, construction. I think it was the Eclipse kit. So BPM is correct. Loop length 2 is also correct. Okay, let's have a listen. We can also do at this point here is assign the kick to part B. Then if we move over the crossfader to A, we can mute the kick. Let's have a listen. So at this point we're already maxing out. Here you can see the two lines here, and our mix also sounds a little muddy. Therefore we need to do some EQing before we continue. So let's go to the mixer tab, effects, and I always like to put a para EQ on every channel. Let's do that here. Alright, here we can now highlight certain frequencies or decrease certain frequencies, and we can also cut the lows and the highs, and this is what we will do right now. So let's have a listen. Just to the top loop section, we want to filter out the low frequencies without changing the characteristic of that loop too much. For example, if I go like that, we changed, or we took too much away from the low frequencies. Yeah, that seems fine. Let's have a listen to the second one. Now we took too much away from the low frequencies. Yeah, that's okay. So the power EQ of the first synth. Let's also take away the low frequencies. So let's have a listen to the second synth, the ARP synth. Since we have already filtered out quite a lot of those frequencies, the output is not too high anymore. Anyways, we still need to change and filter out the low end of the atmo voices so that we have all the low end for the bass and the kick. So atmo voices over here, para EQ, let's have a listen, let's just solo it. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, now it sounds much tighter and the low end of the kick and the bass is coming through. Since we're using a sidechain compression here that ducks the bass and gives room for the kick, and we also filtered out all the low frequencies of all the other audio tracks. Alright, it's time for the breakdown. Therefore, let's copy this row. In the break, we don't need the kick, we don't need the percussions, and we don't need the bass, but we need the Martin Luther King sample. So let's load that one. I just loaded or downloaded the whole speech from Amazon. So it's quite long, between 20 or 30 minutes. So let's reduce the loop length to 16 instead of 436. It's better to work with that one. So
I have the pleasure to present to you Dr. Martin Luther King.
Yeah, we don't want to have the beginning of the speech, we don't want to have the I have a dream part, has been used too much, too often, definitely. So let's find ourselves another part that sounds cool and that also has a nice message to it. I think we're pretty close here. Let's have a listen.
We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy.
Okay, that's the part. Now is the time. So I only want to have this part. Therefore, I will hit trim clip. And now something from the beginning will be cut off.
Now is the time.
Yeah. So what we do is, let's get this one over here, and we want to have the beginning of the sample.
Now is the time.
Yeah, it's good. Let's have a listen.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy.
Yeah, we definitely need some effects.
Arise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. Now is the time.
Yeah, we need more space at the end. It sounds as if he's cut off right in the middle while he's talking. So let's reduce the BPM a little. Let's extend the clip. Okay, there is the beginning of something new. So let's go over there. A little fade out. And let's give it another try.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time make justice a reality for all of God's children. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy.
I think it's even better if we don't have the fade out in there.
To rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial
Because
justice.
there's always this static background noise, people applauding.
To lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time make justice a reality for all of God's children. Now is the time to make real
That sounds good.
Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time.
Okay, we definitely need to have that synth part louder. The beginning of the break, I'd like to have an effect. Therefore, let's just reuse a regular Akai loop. Let's go to content, audio clips. I think it was some deep house swoosh effect or so. 2. Yeah, that's the one. Slow that one in. This will be probably way too loud.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time.
So in the break, I basically made my own loop. So let's do that. Let's create a clip, and this clip should be 8 bars long. So, and in this clip, I'd like to load a couple of samples. Therefore, let's go over to Charmin stems. We need F minor, F sharp minor. It wasn't pan. I think it was bingo. Yeah, so we just have these F minor stems. So we start off with a really low one. Load that one to pool. Then this one, more highs are coming through. Even more highs. Okay. So let's go to our clip. And let's start with the low one. Place at start. Then let's take the next one. We won't place that one at the start, but at the beginning of the 3rd bar. Next one at the beginning of the 5th bar. Another one at the beginning of the 7th bar. Let's have a listen.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time.
I don't think I want to have warp turned on here, so let's turn that off. Let's reduce this one, and last but not least, let's enter that one on the beginning of bar 8, but we want to reverse that one here for that cool effect to introduce the drop. Let's have a listen. First, okay.
Now is the time to make real the promises
don't want to have this one right here. It's too aggressive. So let's delete this one. And load not the V2 but the V3. It's less aggressive. Let's load that one to bar 7. Undo.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time.
Okay.
Now is the time.
And I said before that we are going to make our own loop. And in order to do so, we need to go to Edit, go to Flatten Clip. Now it's just one loop. And it was a little too loud, so let's reduce the volume. Let's listen.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. Now is the time.
Right after the break, we need a drop. Therefore, let's copy everything over here. We need the kick again. Let's have a listen.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time.
Okay, so I don't want to have the top loop part playing, but of course I want the bass to kick in. Therefore, let's copy it over here.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time.
Okay, definitely can't have the effects on here, so let's set them all to 0. Effects on bass. Doesn't make too much sense here.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy.
Okay, let's hear the transition from break to drop again.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise.
After we've created our first drop, which is rather laid back, let's create a second drop with a little more energy. Therefore, let's copy that row over here. We will delete this part, copy the top loop over here, and I would like to have a more driving percussion. Therefore, let's load another loop. this loop was also in Indigo Dust loops. Drums. Obviously not. Percussion probably. Yeah. Let's have a look at the clip. Loop is 5 bars long. Then obviously something cannot be right. Yeah, BPM is also way too low. Anyways, let's have a listen.
Now is the time.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. So we're already lucky. Again, the BPM is labeled here. So it saves you lots of time if you have samples where everything is properly labeled. So we see that this is an 8-bar loop. BPM is also correct now. Let's have a listen.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy.
When it comes to mastering in the Force, I'm pretty lazy, because usually if your mixdown is okay, then the sound is quite awesome. Let's have a look at the main output. So we're not maxing out anything. So this is why I would just use the maximizer, which is also a limiter. Pick the preset mastering light, reduce the ceiling a little. Then you're basically good to go. Let's have an A/B listening. With the mastering device on, without. So I used many compressors, limiters, tried all of the tools here, but I've got to say they pretty much take away the punch of your kick drum and it doesn't sound that good anymore. So I basically found myself just not using anything at all if the mixdown is great, or just the air maximizer and then the mastering light preset. Let's have a listen at the output.
Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise.
So there's no distortion, everything is limited. It sounds punchy, and that's basically everything I do for mastering. Alright, I hope this tutorial was helpful and you got something out of it. See you next time. Peace out.